All right, BradCooney.com in association with HCN Networks is honored to have on board tonight Jessica Buchanan, who is a New York Times bestseller author entitled Against All Odds. Jessica, you have quite an amazing story to tell, and first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Definitely quite an honor to have you on board. All right, so, and we'll get to the book, of course, Against All Odds. I guess I want to start out and just have you, and you've done a million of these interviews, I'm sure, so I know it might get old sometimes talking about from A to Z, but if you can just kind of, most of my readers know that this podcast is coming, and I've been promoting a little bit on my social networks, so you don't got to fill in every nook and cranny, but can you kind of just paint a picture for us about what happened and what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, sure. So in 2011, I was working in Somalia as a humanitarian aid worker for a European organization. And what I did was travel around Somalia, Uganda, and South Sudan. And I would go and train our staff for our organization in community safety and armed violence reduction and conflict management and things like that. I'm a teacher by profession, so that's how I actually ended up in Africa in the first place many, many years ago. And so October 25th, 2011, I am on just a routine field mission doing a training with my staff, and around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my colleague and I were in a convoy of vehicles, armed vehicles, headed back north to our compound or our office when we were apprehended. Our car was essentially hijacked or taken over by two very angry armed men who drove us into the desert many, many hours. And then subsequently we were held for 93 days out in the desert by heavily armed, very angry, some mentally ill Somali land pirates, essentially.
Unbelievable. In hindsight, when you look back at this, were they casing you out for a while? Did they see their two targets and plan this thing out, or was it more of a spontaneous, who's going to cross Americans?
No, it was definitely something that took a large amount of strategy and organization. My colleague actually, I think, was the target, and I ended up just being in the wrong place at the wrong time because this wasn't my base station. This isn't where I lived and worked regularly. I was just there for 2 days, and it was my first time there. And I got nabbed right along with him. But definitely something that took a large amount of coordination amongst the different communities in the area that we were staying in during the captivity. A large amount of coordination with local leaders and people in the community. So it was very heartbreaking for me knowing that, I've been doing humanitarian or development work for a long time, and my colleague had been in these communities for a very long time, and our organization had been there, offering assistance and capacity building and doing all kinds of things for these communities. And they knew we were there. They knew we were being held, but they weren't speaking out. They weren't doing anything.
Man.
So it was really disheartening, from a humanitarian perspective.
Let me ask you this. When you were being held captive, and as the days go by, did you wonder if anybody even knew you were gone, as far as like the U.S. government?
Oh, yeah. No, I never in a million years thought that anybody had any idea that we were there. My colleague would joke around from time to time. We'd be sitting on this mat under a tree, 12 hours a day, and then we'd lay on the mat under the stars for 12 hours at night. And he would sing song kind of, send in the Marines. And I would get so angry at him because I was just no one knows we're here. You know, our only hope of getting out of here is our organization, negotiating a way for us to get out. And the only way, that's going to take years. And, we're just going to have to figure out how to survive. And, he was from a smaller European country. And I just would be like, maybe your country knows about you, but my country's got way better things to do. And they have no idea.
He was Danish, right? He's from Denmark?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you walk us through like what a normal day was like in captivity? Was it the same thing day in and day out? Was there any kind of different routines, or how was that like?
Yeah, I mean, because we were held outside for the entire time, we actually traveled a lot. So it's not like they just took us to a house or a compound out in the middle of nowhere and left us in a dark room. And we had to sit there for 93 days, which I actually feel very fortunate that we had the experience that we did because, we were outside, so there was fresh air, we were in the sunshine. There wasn't a whole lot to look at, but, occasionally camels would walk by or goat herders would come by or something. And so, we moved 50 to 60 times throughout the course of the captivity. Sometimes we would stay in one camping spot for 3 to 5 days. Other times we would move 4 or 5 times in one night, and they would wake us up in the middle of the night and demand that we get into the car. We had to move fast, and then we would drive for hours in the dark, maybe in circles. Who knew where we would end up? And I remember it was Christmas Eve. It was so strange. We left our camping spot that we'd been at for several days, and it was kind of like an odd way that they started packing up late in the day, which was not normal, and it was Christmas Eve, so we were thinking maybe this is like a Christmas miracle, like maybe they're taking us and they're going to exchange us, and we're going to be free. And so we went. And we went in this convoy of vehicles, and we drove to this village maybe 2 hours away, and they just drove us into the village. Everybody got out of the car except for the 2 hostages. They rolled down all the windows, and they let all of the villagers come up and just look at us like we were zoo animals.
Like you guys are trophies or something.
Totally. It was so weird.
Oh, my God.
And then they drove us to the edge of town. We got out. We made a campfire. The leader of the militia, or the pirates, made some rice. We ate. We fell asleep for a couple hours, and he got us up in the middle of the night, got us back in the car, and we drove for a couple more hours, and we had no idea where we were because it was completely pitch black, and we wake up in the morning in the exact same camp that we had been at for the last few days.
Jeez.
So, it was just total, I was just always astonished at how strange things were. So that was, you can't call that a normal day, but that was kind of what it was like. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. It
was normal for your days anyway, while you were there,
Yeah, it was just, it's kind of hard to wrap my brain around sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine thinking back now. What about your treatment? Did they harm you physically at all?
They were not very nice. I have to say I was very lucky. I was able to avoid really serious situations like sexual assault, and
that's
I was very afraid of because I was the only woman.
Oh my God!
For so long among so many men.
Yep.
That was just. That was, hands down, that was a miracle.
I want to interject because that's actually a miracle that didn't happen. I'm shocked by that.
Yeah, and I was too. And I was just waiting for it too.
Yeah, man.
Just on edge. And it didn't, because I got out in time and I think I was smart in some ways. At the very beginning, we were driving again out in the middle of the night, and they separated my colleague and I thought they were taking us, to different parts of the country. I thought they were separating us for real. I didn't know if they were going to kill him. I didn't know if they were going to kill me. And I was in so much panic. I got physically ill, and I had them stop the vehicle, and I got out of the vehicle, and I was sick to my stomach, and one of the leader of the group, he got out and he, you know, gave me some water, which was merciful, and
wow.
and I remember him asking me if I had any children, and I didn't at the time, but it just popped out of my mouth, and I said yes, I had a 1-year-old little boy.
I don't blame you.
And somehow my instincts took over, knowing that, like, in Somali culture, they really respect their mothers. And so throughout the course of the captivity, then a lot of them would ask me about my baby. They would ask me, you know, what he liked to eat. Like, they would ask me personal questions about this baby. And I do think that helped kind of put me in some different category. You know, I wasn't just this, like, single, you know, American girl. Now I'm a mother.
Yeah.
And I have a baby that I'm desperately, like, trying to get home to. So I think things like that helped kind of de-sexualizing myself and whatnot.
It's like it elevated the respect level enough to where they were at least respectful to, you know, hands off as far as that goes.
I mean, there was a lot of shoving and hitting and things, but it could have been so much worse.
Now, I want to flip this around for a second, talk about your husband and what he was doing while this was going on. I'm sure, I mean, life was horrible for him, too, his wife, you know? So if you could just kind of share with my listeners what was going on his side of this.
Well, my husband Eric, he's Swedish, so he had this unique position, this role to play where he was kind of liaising between the U.S. government, the FBI, my family, my organization, and he had been working in Somalia for years and years and years, so he knew the context very well. And he is, I kept telling my colleague, you know, Eric's a bulldog. I know he is pounding down every door. He is slamming his hands down on the table, and he will not stop until, you know, we get out of here. And but I know, and I knew sitting there that I knew he felt partially responsible because, you know, I was in Somalia essentially because I married him, and that's, you know, I followed him up there and whatnot. And I think he felt like he had this responsibility to my family. We had just lost my mother the year before very suddenly, so my family had been through a lot, and now here they're having to face possibly losing me, and so I think there was just all of this emotion, and not to mention the fact that, you know, here you are, a man, and your wife is being held hostage in the desert, and you can't do anything to save her. I mean, other than go in and try to get her yourself, which would only get him killed, which I know he took solid steps to actually try to do until the FBI intervened and whatnot. So he's an incredible guy, and he just played a fantastic part in communicating between all of the different players and making sure my family was taken care of and making sure he could communicate well between the FBI and my organization and so on.
It pays to marry smart, man. It really does.
Yeah, but I know it was gut-wrenching.
Yeah, man. All right, so what were some things you did mentally that helped you get through each day? I know a minute ago you were talking about your colleague was making some jokes and stuff like that, but was there anything, did you do a lot of praying? I'm not sure if you're a religious person or not, but just some things, were there some things you did that helped you get through?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am a person of faith, so prayer was very important to me. I did yoga when I was actually able to. There were times when I couldn't stand up under the tree that I was forced to sit under, but if this tree was high enough, then I would do that. I spent a lot of time in reflection. Like, as I said, I'd lost my mother the year before, and although I don't think I was able to properly continue grieving because the stress and the situation was so strange, I did have this really unique opportunity to go back and kind of review my life.
Yeah.
I decided to kind of make a work plan for myself, and I gave myself a job. And, I mean, the first order of business was that I needed to stay sane because, I mean, the first and foremost thing that I was worried about, of course, is that I was going to die or that I was going to be killed.
Sure.
The second thing was that I was going to lose my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of became this, like, power struggle because once I realized that they didn't have any control over that as much as they thought they did with the mind games and, you know, taking my colleague away and, you know, shooting their guns in the air and then coming back and telling me that they killed them and stuff like that.
Right.
I just realized, you know, I am in control of that. They can't control that. And so I decided to take my life in 2-year increments. So I was 32 at the time. And I just tried to remember everything I could remember. It's like good and bad. And so, you know, like between the ages of 6 and 8, I think that's when my mom, she took me to a movie theater for the first time, and I went to go see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and she was wearing this beautiful blue dress and had white flowers on it. And I tried to remember what the popcorn tasted like and what was the experience like. What did the movie theater look like? What it was in the summertime, like, you know, just every detail. Or I thought about my whole courtship with Eric, and you know, I tried to remember every single date that we went on, and what we ate for dinner, and what did we talk about, and you know, I realized that I had this beautiful life, and it wasn't over, but if it was going to be over, I had some amazing experiences, and I had and was still being loved so deeply and so greatly, and I had beautiful friends that I knew were missing me, but I'd experienced so much, and it kind of made things easier from then on, you know, because I guess I chose to look at it as half full instead of half empty, because, you know, once I stopped asking, like, why is this happening? Like, why is this happening to me? And made space in my brain to review all of that other stuff. It kind of brought me to this place of acceptance, which then gave me this extra amount of courage and strength to try to survive. And so from then I decided to adapt to my environment, and so I learned how to cook bread the Somali way, which was just mixing flour and water and actually baking it, burying it in the sand and putting hot coals on it. So I ended up making bread every morning when everybody got up, and I learned how to, you know, cook tea on the fire, and I, you know, just like even the most mundane things, because I thought, you know, I'm going to be here for a while. So I need to learn how, I'm going to have to become Somali. Like, I'm going to have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make it out of this thing alive. So.
Wow.
And not be, like, as insanely miserable as I was allowing myself to be. So.
Did you have, it's kind of a weird question, but did you have any favorites of all the hostage takers? Was there anybody who showed a little bit more compassion than the other ones?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We talk in the book about this driver. His name was Zaire, and he spent I think I was around him more than any of the other captors. Paul and I, my colleague, we came up with nicknames for all of them. Some of them were a little bit more derogatory than others, and just so we could talk about them without them hearing us. And so we nicknamed him Helper because he felt so bad about the part he was playing in all of this. He actually did have a conscience.
Wow.
He had 8 kids at home, and he had no way to provide for them. He was kind of an anomaly in the sense that he had this Land Cruiser that he owned, and he rented it out, and he rented out himself as a driver, and he took really good care of it. He was very religious. He prayed 5 times a day, and he was so kind to me and to Paul. He became our friend, and he would just look at me if he could even meet, you know, my my gaze. Most of the time he was too ashamed to make eye contact and just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
What would you do if you came across him again now?
Well, unfortunately, he didn't make it through.
Okay.
So I never will. But I do think about his family.
Sure.
Actually, and
wow.
and it's there's just such a disparity, because as much as I didn't want to be there and I didn't want to be a hostage, I understood why I was there, because Somalia is a country that has no infrastructure. It's torn by civil war. Most people live on less than $1 a day. The life expectancy is somewhere in the mid-50s.
Man.
People are still starving to death. Kids are still dying of, basic illnesses like diarrhea.
Yeah. Bad water sources.
So I understand why they did it. I don't condone it, but who's to say I wouldn't do the same thing?
Yeah, that's a very, very fair way to see that. It really is, because you never know what you would do if the roles were reversed and you lived in famine and hunger and in a war-torn nation. Americans are, I hate to say, look, I was in the Navy. I've been in over 22 countries myself, so I know how spoiled some Americans are and how they take things for granted here horribly.
Yeah. And I think universally, I'm a mother now. I have 2 small children, and I would move hell and heaven to put food on the table for my kids. I would do whatever it took, and so, my heart, that's why I was there in the first place.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, bad people exist everywhere, and they are what impede the process of development. Because, as soon as 2 expats get kidnapped, then all the other agencies start pulling out, and then they can't offer any more assistance. They can't offer any more development, because it's not safe.
Right.
So it's like a boomerang kind of deal, No one wins. I remember my dad saying that to me, like in the first couple of weeks after I was released. He just said it's one of those situations where no one wins.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on and talk about the rescue. SEAL Team 6, God bless them. I'm sure you were happy to see those Americans. Can you kind of?
I was shocked.
Talk about that day and walk us up to when you saw the first U.S. Navy SEAL looking at you.
Yeah, so it was basically it was in the middle of the night, and it was one of those nights that was just pitch black. No stars. It was completely cloudy, no moon. I woke up and I don't know, maybe around 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was actually very ill. I had a kidney infection, and I was in terror. Needed to get up. What we would do if we needed to leave our mat was to say toilet, because they understood that word in English. So I said toilet. There are about 9 guys keeping watch that night, but everybody had completely passed out. Everybody was completely asleep, in deep sleep. No one will wake up. I kept saying toilet, no one will wake up. So I decided to just risk it and go find the closest bush, and I had a small flashlight that I could use to light my way, but the whole time I was out behind the bush, I was flashing it so that they could see that I hadn't tried to escape. Who knew what they would do to me?
Right.
They thought I was trying to escape. So unbeknownst to me, I'm flashing this flashlight. There's someone else approaching that I can't see, and so I go back to my mat and I lay down on my blanket. I hear this scratching noise that I think are these really large beetles that would come out at night, and they would get in my hair and in my clothes. And I'm sick. I'm tired. I'm not in the mood to deal with this. I get up. I shake my mat. I can't find them, but I can hear the scratching, and I'm just out of my mind in pain and just want to lay down. And finally, I just give up. I lay down. I cover my face with my blanket, and not 2 minutes goes by when Helper, actually, who was laying next to me, he jumps up, and normally he didn't ever walk around with a weapon. He's holding an AK-47, and he's screaming at the other guys to wake up, and then the whole night just erupts. into automatic gunfire.
Oh,
And
wow.
all I can think is just, like, I am not going to make it out of this. Because in my mind, we're probably being ambushed by another clan, or maybe it's Al-Shabaab, which is an Al-Qaeda-linked group that has strongholds in southern Somalia. And then, I mean, if it's Al-Shabaab, then they captured an American woman. I mean, it's not as bad as ISIS, but it's something along those lines that
Sure.
I'm so dead. I'm never going to make it out of this life, and I'm just laying there thinking, like, I gave it my best, but I'm emotionally giving up at this point. And then somebody grabs my arms and my legs and starts shaking me, and I start kicking back and fighting back, and I'm crying. I'm so terrified. And the blanket is pulled away from my face, and I can't see anything, just dark blobs, basically, and the sky is really dark. And then I hear somebody say my name, and it's this this young man, and he says, Jessica, Jessica, it's okay, calm down. We're the American military. We're here. You're safe now, and we're going to take you home.
Oh, wow.
And all I can do, I stood up, and I'm just surrounded by all of these American men wearing masks and weapons, and I'm still hearing like all these awful sounds of people dying around me, and all I can say is, "You're American? You're American?" Like, over and over again. I just can't. I'm in so much shock. I can't fathom how they even got there. How did we not? I'm just a million questions. And one of them asked me if I have my shoes, and I can't find them. And I mean, it was just like a movie. I mean, he just drops down, picks me up, throws me over his shoulder, and just starts running out into the desert. And we get to the point of safety, and he puts me down. And of course, my first question is, where's my colleague Paul? Did he make it out alive? And he's sitting right there. He gives me some medicine and some clean water. Another one offers me some food, and then Paul leans over to me because he'd been there a little bit longer, and he was talking to the other guys. And he goes, "Do you know who these guys are?" And I said, "I don't really care."
We're Americans. That's it.
I'm here. I'm safe. We're going to get out of here. And he was just like, "Jessica, this is SEAL Team 6. These are the guys that got
Osama bin Laden."
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm shaking. I'm in so much shock. And
wow.
Yeah, it was just surreal. And at one point, they don't know if the premises, I guess, are safe still. So they ask us to lie down, and then a few of them actually lie down on top of us, and then the rest of them formed a shield around us. I just remember seeing their backs to us, and we laid like that until it was time to run further and get into the helicopters that lifted us out of there. I mean, it was just incredible.
Wow. It's a movie. So where was the first place you landed once you got out of Somalia?
We actually landed in an airstrip in Somalia and got into bigger planes, and we went to Djibouti, north of Somalia. There's a big military base there. So we were there for about 12 hours and debriefed with the FBI, got some medical attention, and some psychosocial support. We were given food.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a shower. That first shower, it was just...
Must have been the best freaking shower you ever had in your life.
Yeah,
man.
it was. and I had just had a quote-unquote shower a few days before, and I thought I had got myself pretty clean, but I just remember watching all this dirt swirl down into the drain, thinking, I wonder what they thought when they saw me.
Man. Now, let me ask you this. When from the point the U.S. SEAL Team 6 basically snatched you out of there, how long was it until you was able to call your husband? Was there a satellite phone? Did you get pretty quick word back?
I didn't get to call him until we were in Djibouti.
Okay.
And then I was only allowed to talk to him for 5 minutes. I participated in the Department of Defense's hostage reintegration program, and it's very structured. It's very formalized. So you get 5 minutes to speak to your loved ones. So I got to talk to my dad and my sister for 2 minutes each, and I talked to Eric for 5. And after minute 4, I realized, okay, I understand why they say 5 minutes, because this is just too much.
Yes.
I haven't been able to process anything, and I've just been through, the most horrific experience of my life, and then your loved one who's been trying to figure out what, formulating what they're going to say to you when this moment finally happens, it's gushing, and you just can't handle the emotion.
Oh, it's like an overdose of emotions.
Totally. Yeah, it's just too much.
So, did your husband and your family, did they hear of your rescue prior to your calling them? Did they know you were rescued, or was your phone call a complete surprise to them?
No, they knew.
Okay.
Actually, President Obama made the phone call to my father. My dad and my sister were in Washington, D.C. when it happened. They were meeting with the FBI and getting updates and trying to figure out where to go from there. And my dad, and they were in a hotel, and they'd just come back from dinner, and he gets a phone call on his cell phone saying he needed to keep the line clear for the next 45 minutes because he'd be receiving a call. And my sister was just like, what does that mean? And my dad said it's either really good or it's really bad.
Did he have any idea it was going to be the President of the United States?
No. I mean, I think that they were really, really afraid that they were getting a call that said that I hadn't made it.
Oh, man. So then I wish I had your dad on the line, because that's another interview there almost. Wonder what went through his mind when the President of the United States, gets on the line with him. What an experience.
Yeah, and I mean, it was such a cool human thing for President Obama to do, because what he said to my dad was, as the father of two daughters, I can't imagine what you have been going through over these last 3 months, and I wanted to be the one to tell
That's
you
great.
that, you have a really strong daughter, and you have a strong family, and she's made it out, and she's going to be just fine.
That's great. I've seen the President make those calls before on videos. A young Marine who's actually from a little community close to where I am here in Mississippi, he got the Medal of Honor about a year and a half ago. And I saw the video of when the President called his mother and said, I need to, your son there. It was just great. President Obama is very good at that. Just being a human, not so much the president, just a human talking to another human.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that.
Go ahead. No, finish your thought.
No, I just was going to say, I just think that, that's commendable for a person to take the time to do that.
Definitely.
And I mean, that blew my mind, because here I am sitting in Somalia in the desert thinking that no one even knows I'm alive or dead.
Yep, and little did you know. SEAL Team 6, the president, everybody was involved.
And that's what it means. That's what it means to be an American.
Yep, absolutely.
No one gets left behind.
Yep. One last question, and then we'll talk about the book real quick, where people can go to get it, and websites and things like that. Can you share with us, what a little bit of the conversation was on the helicopter ride with you and the SEAL team? Were they still with you?
For a little while. Actually, when we were on the plane going to Djibouti, I was just sitting there, and everybody was celebrating, and I just felt like I had lost all sense of social norms. I didn't even really know how to have a conversation. I was sitting next to this guy, and I kept feeling like I should be able to talk to him or ask him a question, but I can't remember how to talk to anybody. And then one of the SEALs came over to me with a folded American flag, and I was sitting, and he just kind of kneeled down and handed it to me, and he just said, "Welcome home, Jessica."
Oh, man.
And I think that's when I finally just let go.
Yeah.
And I just lost it.
Oh, who wouldn't have? I would have lost it. That's, wow.
Yeah.
All right, so fast forward, so you get home and you try to, resume normalcy. I'm sure that took some adjustment to get back and then try to pick up your life and do things again. And you wrote the book, Against All Odds. Did writing the book help you heal? Was that part of the healing process to write that book?
Yeah, absolutely. We had the help of Anthony Flacco,
Yep.
who's an amazingly talented writer. And Eric and I went back to Africa for a year after everything. We went back to Kenya and lived there. I found out shortly after the rescue that I was pregnant and expecting our first child, which was super cool and pretty miraculous
Absolutely.
in of itself. So we wrote the book with Anthony over Skype. So we spent hundreds of hours just basically having conversations with him, which was so amazing because I don't think that Eric and I would have gotten to have some of those conversations had we not written the book the way we did. So definitely therapeutic, definitely it was a good thing. It took me about 6 months to even manage thinking about a project like that. And it happened the way it needed to.
Okay, good stuff. Now, I saw on your website that you totally supporting the Navy SEAL Foundation. Talk about that a little bit.
So I'm a kind of informal ambassador for the Navy SEAL Foundation, which is a great group of people that basically support the families of fallen and active duty SEALs. So if a SEAL is lost, in the line of duty, the foundation helps pick up some of the financial burdens that happens because, most likely he was the breadwinner because his wife, if he had a family, his wife is at home with the kids and now maybe she needs to go back to school because she's got to completely rearrange her life, or maybe her kids need to go into daycare and there's no money to pay for that. And, the government, I think, does what it can, but it leaves them, it doesn't cover everything that's going to happen in the event of a tragedy like that. So they also offer a lot of, psychological support, emotional support. It's just a great foundation. And I'm encouraging everybody this Christmas, if you're looking for somewhere to donate or contribute charitable giving, Navy SEAL Foundation. It's a great thing.
So they can go to your website, which is jessicabuchanan.com, and then click on the Navy SEAL Foundation emblem that's on the bottom and donate to this great cause.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Absolutely.
And also your website is jessicabuchanan.com. Is there anything else on that website that you'd like to talk about?
Well, actually, I just wanted to correct that the book is called Impossible Odds. And it's the kidnapping of Jessica Buchanan and her dramatic rescue by SEAL Team 6. And it can be found on Amazon. And also, I'll just plug real quickly that I am actually going to be starting my own podcast in the new year. It's going to be called The Survivor. And we're going to focus on survivors' stories and the aftermath, what that looked like for them, and just try to share some inspirational, motivating stories of human triumph.
If you would, repeat the podcast title again, because your Skype kind of chopped up there a little bit.
The Survivor's Well.
Okay, good. And also, I can't believe I said Against All Odds. I think that's a movie.
It's a good title, but...
but it's not the book title, though.
But it's not that one. So it's Impossible Odds.
It's Impossible Odds, and I stand corrected, and I do apologize for that little screw up. So I'm glad we got that. Well, look, this has been just an absolute honor to talk to you. I'm so happy you are back. SEAL Team 6 did their thing. Your husband did his thing. You did your thing to stay alive, and it's great that you're back. Do you have any closing thoughts? Is there anything else you want to share with the readers and listeners before I let you go?
I just think that, with everything that's going on in the world today, we really need to just be grateful for the privileges that we have and the actual safety that we do have in America. And, I feel really honored to be able to share my story so that people know what it really truly means. They don't leave anybody behind, and we all matter.